Good afternoon, YouTube. Today is Wednesday, the 31st of May, and I'm on my way to what might be my last job of the day. I'm scheduled to arrive around about 4 o'clock on my way to the Leyland to Scotland, and in my experience it is probably looking unlikely that I'll get a job back down today. So as I've got a 3-hour drive, I wanted to update you as to today's stats, assuming I do nothing else after this delivery. So this morning I was on the app around about 7:30. So I ended up in southwest Manchester last night, and I was looking for jobs to go anywhere, and quite a few came up, and I got a couple of bids on for £50 sort of around the area, and then a job came up that stated small van prices only. It was a small van job, and it was 44 miles. And I thought, I can't bid for that because my minimum is £50, and they're really specifying they only pay small van prices, and I was looking at over £1 a mile. So I put a few bids in, and then I came back to this one, and I put a bid in at £50. I thought, I'll just try it. There's no harm trying, and I got it. I had to travel 13 miles from where I'd camped to collect it at M17, and it was about a half an hour journey roughly. So by the time I'd set off, I picked it up about 8:20, and it was just literally a small box of screws. So really easy to pick up. I took that and delivered it to a place that I've never been to before. I'm going to get the name in front of me. Barnoldswick. It's a BB postcode. As I said yesterday, I'm not familiar with this area. It was about an hour's journey from M17 going northwards, and if there was only a box, I thought just for an hour I'll just deliver it quickly and see what else is popping up. So along the way to Barnoldswick, I was looking for jobs, and a couple of jobs came up that were really helpful for me. One was going to Hull from Burnley to Leeds, which was only about 20 minutes from where I was dropping off. So I put a bid on for that. There's one going from around the Burnley area going down to Bristol, I think it was, which was a nice long route, which I would have taken. I put a bid on that. But I didn't get anything, and I was putting on quotes that I'd be happy to take the jobs for. The only thing to note is I noticed when I got sort of north of Burnley, the countryside was really nice, but the roads were quite thin, and they had stone walls, country roads with stone walls. So with my van and traffic coming the other way, I had to slow down to let people pass quite a lot. So it did slow me down a bit, but it was really nice countryside, really, really hilly. I'm not used to the hills around this area. Yeah, so I got it delivered to a depot. It was really easy, in and out, just handed the box over, took a photo, put it on the CX system, all done. So at this point in time I was thinking today is not going that well. I mean, it's okay, I've got a job, and I've got about £50. I need to earn quite a lot more today. So I was looking for jobs, and I had to make a decision. I'd ended up in quite a remote-ish place. I looked around at jobs, and there was a job going from Leeds, there was a job going from Burnley, and they were both half an hour from where I was. And I want to come and talk to you about this later on, about dead miles. And I've got something to say about what I learned about dead miles over the last few months. But I had to make a decision. So in the end, I put a bid on a job that was going from Halifax, which was further than I wanted to go. It was 30 miles from where I was. And I was going to Kelso, just south of Edinburgh. And it was on the app, it was 189 miles. And I put a bid in of £200. It was a short wheelbase job, but it was a heavy pallet. It was a 1-ton pallet. So I got that job, and I then spent the next hour and a quarter driving from Barnoldswick to Halifax along some really nice roads and some really, really steep roads as well. So I then arrived at Halifax, and after a bit of toing and froing about what I was doing, because the person who was out on site didn't know what I was picking up, so I made a couple of calls. He made a couple of calls, and we got there eventually. I got the pallet loaded up onto my van in the middle, in my side door, so to try and get it between my axles. I learned that from a video that James did a while ago about overloading. So if I hadn't seen that video, thank you James, I would have probably put it at the back over my rear axles. So I suppose at this point I'm thanking you James for a bit of direct advice, which has helped me today. Right, so moving on, I've picked that up, and I'm on my way to Scotland now. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I had a bit of a hairy moment coming out of Halifax because I had a 1-ton load and really steep hills, and I literally had to go in first gear up these hills to get out of Halifax. So, but it's part of the job. It's all learning new things. So I'm expecting to get to Kelso about 4 o'clock-ish, and unloaded by about 4 o'clock. And so I'm not sure if there'll be any work today. In an ideal world, I would like to have a job tonight this afternoon coming south towards the Hull area, but we'll see what happens. But in case there is no further work, here are my stats for today. This is when I drop off this load, these will be my stats. So I will have earned today £250 before expenses. That's the £50 job this morning, and the £200 job I'm doing right now. The mileage I will have done today is 283 miles, and that would cost me in fuel £36, based on just under 13 pence per mile for my fuel at the moment. That would give me net earnings today after fuel of £214. And remember, my target is £250. So not too far off target. And I will have a lot of day left when I get there, but I'm not assuming at this point that I will get any more work. So that's what my day is going to be like today, and what it has been like. I wanted to take this opportunity to share some learning and some thoughts I have about dead miles. As I said, I am new to this job, and so the term, when I first looked at YouTube, I didn't understand what dead miles meant. So if you're in the same situation, this might be helpful. And the way that I understand dead miles, it's the miles that you drive when you're not getting paid for that job. So either the miles to get to a job, or the miles after a job when you're trying to find another job. And in my mind, there are three categories of dead miles. And when I explain what they are, I'm then going to change my mind and say there's actually only 2 categories of dead miles by my definition. So the first category I would see is dead miles when you have got no job at the end of it. So that would be like last night. When I finished my job yesterday afternoon, it wasn't even last night. My third job yesterday afternoon, I finished off in a farm, and I had to find a job. That farm was in the region of Crewe, but wasn't actually near Crewe, it was in the country. And so what I ended up doing was I had to move from that point to try and get somewhere where there's a better chance of getting work. And I moved, in total, I ended up moving 13 miles that afternoon, and didn't get a job. So I ended up tramping at about 5:30, 5 o'clock, I stopped looking and found somewhere to tramp for the night. So those 13 miles that I drove this afternoon, got me no money and got me no job. They were literally a complete expense. And it's those miles, those kinds of dead miles, you want to reduce as much as possible. Now, yesterday I felt that my best tactic was to try and move north towards Stockport area, because that's where the work was coming out of. And I didn't actually get a job by doing that, so it didn't work. But that was my plan, that's the strategy. The second kind of dead miles that I see are like the dead miles I had today. I had 30 dead miles, and that was getting from the drop off I had this morning going to Halifax. But those dead miles were getting me to a job that I already had. So that although I wasn't being paid for those miles, I see them as being useful dead miles because they got me to a job that was paying me. And so compared to last night's 13 miles, today's 13 miles I feel quite fine about because I've got a job out of it. And my strategy today, when I was in the middle of the country trying to find a job, was I'm going to stay where I am and I'm going to try and find the nearest jobs to me, and they were all over half an hour away, and bid accordingly. And that's why I ended up bidding for the Halifax job going to Scotland. Because it was a long job, I could put more on the bid. And the actual miles was 189 miles, and I bid £200. So I actually bid more than £1 a mile for the actual loaded miles. But obviously, if you include the dead miles, I would have driven 208 miles to get to do that job. But those dead miles, those 30 dead miles to Halifax, I think are all right because they got me a job. The third kind of dead miles is when you price, in my mind, this is how I'm categorising them. When you price a job, you have every option to add on the cost it takes you to get to that job to your bid. So I could have added on £1 a mile for my 30 miles to the £1 a mile for the job I want to do. Let's say we're happy with £1 a mile. So it could have been £208, and that would have been £1 a mile, including the so-called dead miles to get there. So if you do cost a job up and you pay for your miles to get to the job, I don't see that as being dead miles. I think you've paid for those miles. They're not in my mind dead miles. The shipper doesn't care. Doesn't need to know. Doesn't care. Doesn't need to know whether you're including them as the miles to get to the job or not. So there is a way around dead miles, and that's when you're bidding, what you bid and how you allocate in your mind the bid. So in my mind, there are two real dead miles: those that literally get you no income, and those dead miles that get you to a job that pays you. And then my final point about today is I chose to quote £200 for the job of going to Scotland. And I think that's a little bit cheap. A little bit cheaper than I would want to do it for. But I had to make a judgment call. And that was where I was in the country. My knowledge of the country the area I was in wasn't that good. The time of the day. And I feel very happy that I won that bid. I'm very grateful for the shipper for giving me that bid at that price, because it gives me a really good paying day, and I've still got the opportunity at the end of the day to earn more money. And technically I've done the job a bit cheaper than I maybe could have done it for. I was looking at my dead miles, what would have hours, and I suppose I could technically have gone up to £230, and I would have felt that was like a full price job for this. But I might not have got the job then, and that's the risk you have to take. It's all a judgment call, and you only get this when you do the job for a bit. And everyone's judgment call is different. If you are listening to this video, you will either agree or you'll disagree. I'm happy either way. You will either agree because you have a different standard of income that you need. You might be able to take less money than me, you might be able to take more money than me, might need to take more money than me. You might have a certain standard of whether you can tramp or not. I'm happy to tramp out. You might have a lot of experience in this industry, like decades of experience, and you've learned over the years what you're prepared to put up with and what you're not prepared to put up with. You might be brand new and you don't know what you're going to put up with. So I'm absolutely comfortable with the idea that some of you will disagree and some of you would agree. I'm just taking this opportunity to share my perspective, which is what I want to do with this channel, and put it out there. And if you take anything from that, that is great. That's what I want you to try and do. Right, thank you very much for listening to this video. I am going to get on with my job now and my day. It's possible that I might end up with more work at the end of today, in which case I will do an updated video tomorrow. I think I don't have the knowledge to put videos together like I see lots of people do. So at this point I'm just going to take a video, upload it as and when I feel I've got something to say. So thank you for listening, and what have you learnt today?